Hola amigos, soy Padre Gamer y en esta oportunidad, continuando con el playlist que estoy haciendo del Unity Developer Day Colombia, les voy a hablar acerca de la conferencia del keynote de Thais Weiller, donde ella habla acerca de lo que es el diseño de videojuegos agridulce, o lo que es conocido en inglés como BitterSweet Game Design. Es una filosofía que ella adopta en sus videojuegos y de la cual nos va a hablar en la conferencia. Thais Weiller es una diseñadora de videojuegos brasilera, tiene un máster en Game Design, es cofundadora de la empresa JoyMasher, donde han participado en la creación de juegos retros como Oniken y Odalus, además del juego web-based del cual habla en esta conferencia que se llama Rainy Day. El enfoque de su charla tiene que ver con una filosofía de diseño de videojuegos que ella bautizó como BitterSweet o agridulce. Ella habla acerca del ciclo, el núcleo del ciclo del juego, ¿no? En el cual uno como diseñador de videojuegos ofrece a veces recompensas o a veces castigos dependiendo de lo que esté pasando. Pero ella propone no solo ofrecer recompensas o castigos, sino recompensas y castigos, e incluso a veces haciendo más énfasis en los castigos. Y esto con el fin de generar un vínculo más profundo con el jugador. Hay que, por supuesto, mantener un equilibrio entre el nivel de castigos y recompensas, ya que si solo ofreces castigos, pues puedes ir perdiendo el interés del jugador, ya que no hay nada que lo motive a jugar tu juego. Entonces no quiero, digamos, seguir poniendo más palabras acerca de lo que ella mencionó en la conferencia, sino que voy a dejar que ella misma sea la que exprese, según lo que dijo en la conferencia, sus ideas. La conferencia está en inglés, pero si entienden inglés les recomiendo que la vean, es muy interesante. Así que bueno, sin más nada que agregar, aquí los dejo con Thais Weiller en la conferencia del keynote del Unity Developer Day Colombia que se dio el día de ayer, 17 de noviembre.
Sí. Les voy a presentar a nuestra keynote speaker, u oradora principal. Ella es una señorita, viene de Brasil. Hace 3 años había un evento de Samsung aquí en Bogotá, ahí la conocí, di una presentación súper interesante porque la presentación era sobre game design, que es uno de los temas que los que a veces somos ingenieros pues decimos, bueno, con que funcione está bien, no importa. No está divertido, pero funciona y funciona rápido, funciona a 10.000 frames por segundo. Entonces,
10.000 frames por segundo.
¿no? A lo mejor los que hacen arte, pues dicen, se ve bonito y está bien, pero nos falta como, ok, que sea pegajoso el juego, que la gente se quede pegando ahí, que la gente compre, que la gente, a final de cuentas, haga nuestro juego exitoso. Entonces, mi presentación me gustó mucho y no hablaba tanto como de, esto es lo que tienes que hacer. ¿No? O sea, no te dice, si es un juego Candy Crush, entonces sácale dinero a tu jugador hasta que esté en la ruina. Es más como la parte de sentimientos que generan los jugadores, ese tipo de cosas. Me pareció muy interesante. Le invitamos al Developer Day. Y bueno, Thais, recientemente el highlight que podría decir es que Elon Musk, ¿sí conocen a Elon Musk?
Sí,
¿Sí?
En persona.
Puso en Twitter, en persona, pues no sé si pero probablemente lo más cerca que estemos muchos de conocer a Elon Musk es a través de Thais. Puso en Twitter que quiere poner uno de sus juegos, uno de los juegos de su estudio, en todos los Tesla. Entonces, imagínense ese impacto. Quiero que le demos un aplauso a Thais Weiller.
Buenos días.
Lo siento mucho, pero no consigo hablar en español muy bien. Entonces voy a hablar en inglés, ¿ok?
Ok.
Disculpe. Well, I'm going to talk about a thing that I'm very passionate about, which is game design, but especially bittersweet design, which sounds kind of weird, but let me explain. Before anything, this is me if you don't know me. I made some things. I have a master degree and I worked in games since 2010. So That's basically it. Let's not spend so much time on it. But at first, if we're going to talk about game design, we need to first understand what is a game. And how do we define a game? You guys have any idea? We don't. We generally don't know what a game, how to define a game. We know what a game is when we look at it. And generally, what we associate with games is that they look like fun. It doesn't matter if fun means throwing eggs with a dinosaur called Yoshi, or if it is killing a bunch of zombies and demons in Mars. It looks fun. But what is fun? And that's something that is a bit easier to define. We have some brains to define it for us. Have anyone read Theory of Fun by Kostner? It's a very nice book. It's a short book with a lot of drawings. It's cute. And for Kostner, fun is challenge. So for him, the whole thing about a game is your challenge to discover, to understand how it works. So in his field, that's why we stopped playing tic-tac-toe. You guys know what tic-tac-toe is?
Yes.
Okay. So does anyone here play tic-tac-toe? Yes. So we understand tic-tac-toe. In Portuguese, we actually call it o jogo da velha, because we don't have a name for it. It's just the game of the old strategy. That's the name of it. Because everybody knows how to win. But we still play it, even though we know and we understand. So Kostner understands a lot about games, but some reasons of what we play and some reasons of what is fun are not in his theory. We also have Flow by Csikszentmihalyi. That's how you pronounce that weird name. It took me a while. But the flow theory wasn't created for games. Csikszentmihalyi is a psychologist. He created this theory to understand why people liked doing things they did. For instance, how a professional tennis player, why he loves tennis so much. Or a single mother, why does she love so much to tend for their child, while some other mothers don't like that much. So he was trying to understand why these people like and enjoy doing what they do. And he ended up with a theory that understands how activity makes you interested, how activity makes you motivated. But his theory is mostly focused on the individual, on you. Why this activity is fun for you. And though we try to apply it to games, it doesn't fit quite that well, because the focus is in the person, and we can't play test all players that exist in the whole world, can we? There is also this theory that I like very much from Nikki. He's an MMO researcher. He made a questionnaire that was answered for more than 30,000 players. And he got to this theory of 10 elements of fun. Those 10 elements which players look in a game that is fun for them. So those 10 elements are divided in 3 categories. The first one is challenge. It's people who get motivated by challenge, by trying to beat a difficult boss, trying to beat different players. There is exploration. People that find fun to explore the game, to understand the game lore, to collect things. And finally, the social element. People who play a game for the other players, or to understand other players, to talk with other players, to make quests together. And finally, there is this broad definition of meaningful choices, which means basically that a game is a space that you can make a lot of meaningful choices. That means you can make choices that you feel that impact in the game and impact on the experience you have. So from all these 4 theories, which one is right? None. And none of them are wrong either. All of them are looking to a problem. Let's suppose this problem, the problem of fun and enjoyment in human species. And each one of them are looking for a different angle. So each one of them have a unique view of some aspects of it, but don't have a view of others. That's why I think it's so important to keep researching and keep learning about these theories, because every time you get closer to understand fun and completion. No theory is going to explain it at all aspects of it. But if we understand many of them, we can have a clear vision, if not a complete vision, at least a more full one. But most of those theories we can understand if we know a little bit of psychology and especially conditioning. Do you guys know what a game loop is? Obviously, we are all game developers. A game loop is the essential gameplay in a game. For instance, let's think about Candy Crush. In Candy Crush, the action means sliding the candies. The result would be making a trio or any other sort of combination or not. And the reward would be the points of this combination, and the punishment would be not having this combination or having a bad combination that could be best. This is the core of the gameplay. Does the core involve all the gameplay in the game? No. There are many other loops, many other things that a player can do, but this is the core. This is the main thing that the player is going to do most of the time during the game. And basically this work like Pavlov has taught us like 100 years ago. So, when we get a reward, we get a spike of a hormone called dopamine, which is the hormone that makes you feel good. So if every time before we get this dopamine spike, we receive some kind of feedback, it can be a visual feedback, it can be a sound feedback, we start associating the feedback with the reward. And in the time, the feedback itself releases the dopamine and not the reward. We don't care more about the reward. We just want the dopamine, we just need the signal. So for instance, if Pavlov tried this in dogs, every time he was going to feed the dogs, he played the ball. So he played the ball, feed the dog. He played the ball, feed the dog. After a while, just by playing the ball, the dog started salivating. And that's what we do with our players. We teach them to enjoy the gameplay itself and not just the reward. We start by giving a lot of rewards in the beginning, and the rewards starts to get spreader and thinner, but they're still finding the gameplay fun. So basically all of the games we play today are constructed under this concept, the conditioning concept. And we use it on the core loop. If you look at the core loop, it's basically action, result, and reward or punishment. So we are incentivating some actions and decreasing some actions. But is this all we have? Is this fun? Is conditioning for fun all we have in games? And that's what I want to talk to you guys about? No, I don't think fun is all we have. We have different things we can use in design and different feelings we can give our player to experience. So, for instance, we have something I call temporary frustration. It is basically when in a moment in a game you have a different gameplay. It is the same gameplay but with different results. For instance, in Metal Gear, when you are captured and you are tortured, you try to make the same movements, but you get different results. Generally, we use that in a specific part of the game to highlight the suffering of the protagonist, to show the player, see, he's trying to do the same thing he did before, but he can't now, because this is a tense part, this is an important part in the game. The easier part about temporary frustration is that you can do the whole game using the conditioning as it was. It is simple, the same way you guys are used to, but just in this moment that you want to highlight, the suffering, the tenseness, this is a special moment, you use it as a highlight. We also have deception. Deception would be similar but different. Basically, you have the same sort of gameplay, this conditioning on fun gameplay throughout the whole game, but in the end, you change everything. It's generally a twist to make a statement, but it also generally makes the player feel bad. And that's a negative point of this strategy, is that generally you make a game with lower playability because the player already knows he's going to be betrayed. So sometimes he doesn't feel like going through everything again. But hey, if that's what you want to convey, that's it. You have this option. I thought a lot about which game to use as an example.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to spoiler, so I chose the game that is old enough. So if you don't know the end, I'm not spoiling you, it's your fault. So basically in Raid, you play the whole game looking for a princess. It's very similar to other games, especially Mario, the references, because when you get to the end of stage, someone tells you the princess is in the other castle. And you're trying to save her for a bad abductor, a bad person. But when you get to the end of the game, you realize that you are the stalker and the bad person that the princess is trying to run away. And actually the person you thought was the villain is the princess' new boyfriend, the person she trusts now. And you are the bad guy. So some people still play Braid even though they know the ending, but for most people they feel betrayed. And finally, we get to the BitterSweet part, which is what I'm here to showcase to you. The idea behind BitterSweet is that we have a little bit of bitterness in the game loop itself. So generally how we do it is through moral dilemmas or ethical, mental, and physical states, maybe geopolitical conflicts. We try to deal with things that generally games don't deal with. Identity issues, psychological violence, moral issues, things that people don't feel very comfortable with. And that's how we make them feel it. They don't want to feel that, and we make that. The cons of doing that is that the conditioning cycle is something that we have been doing for years, like since the beginning of the gaming industry. So this can be risky. It's not that easy to get the right balance of factors. So you don't have also, since it's not something that common, you don't have a lot of examples to base yourself on. But the pros is you can give your player a richer experience, a full experience, a wider experience of human feelings, and why the hell not? We are game developers, we're trying to break new things. So this is an example. Have you guys played this war of mine? So this is basically a survivor strategy game. Why is it different from any other game? Because the people you're trying to survive against, they are not villains. They are people, just like you. You have dilemmas. You have to think about the other survivors. You have to think about the psychological implications of your actions. The developers fought so hard to have this feeling, to convey this humanity behind all characters, that, for instance, in the beginning, they have, in the interface, the item interface, they had a slot for weapons, separated from the other items. And they realized that if they had a slot just for weapons, people tended to think that they needed a weapon. That's why they took that out and just put extra slot on items, so that if you want to take a weapon, it's a choice of yours. And it's going to take place of medicine, or food, or water, and it's a choice. It's not something that you expect to use. And Papers, Please. Papers, Please deals with the moral issues of having people in and out of a country, and how they're going to live in the country or out of it. And besides that, you also have the complication of having your own family. If you try to help a lot of people, you can be put in prison, or you can have so many discounts on your paycheck that your family starts to starve and they die. Burning with My Love is an amazing game, a mobile game. If you guys have time and a little bit of credits on Google Play, I really recommend you to play. It's basically a message app game. You talk with this person that is your partner, and you both are Syrians. And you guys collect enough money to send someone out of Syria during the Civil War, and you and your partner decides that she should be the one going, and you are the one staying behind. So you keep talking to her and helping her, making her own decisions, so you influence her path, but it's her choices. So you're kind of trying to help her, but not always you help. It's heartbreaking. Dysphoria by Anna Antramorphic. It's an amazing game. Anna is a trans woman, and this game is about being trans in a society that doesn't like trans people very much. And it's a very light game. It changes gameplay a lot. It's funny and it's interesting. And it is very hard to play because she took it out of the internet. She said a lot of cis people were playing this game and saying they understood how it felt to be a trans person. And she said, I don't want you guys to feel you are entitled to know what it is to be me. So she took it out from almost everywhere, but you still can find it if you look so good. So basically, how does that work? It is the same look, but you're not giving reward or punishment. You are giving both, in form of moral dilemma, in form of consequences. Everything that the player does has consequences within the game. Some things that add in a game that is fought with the BitterSweet game design. Mental space of the protagonist or the other characters in the game. How someone in this mental state is going to see the world, how this blocks their view of the world, how this take their action. Social space, the environment these characters live in, how this impact their choices and what they can do. Misinformation. In your life, you don't know everything about everybody around you. Why do your protagonists need to know? A lot of things your protagonist just don't know, and he can't know, because in real life, that's how it works. So why not just to hide some things, even though you are counting them? And since it is a not very usual and common way to make games or to think game design, I always recommend to keep on essentials only, to focus on one thing you want to recreate and do everything in your power to do this one thing. Everything else is later. So I don't know if you know this expression, but KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Always try to use that when dealing with a game like that. This is overall, you try to understand what you're trying to recreate and list all mental and environment spaces that are associated with that. You try to talk with people in this situation. If you can, you try the situation on your own. Then you go to mechanic ideation. Is that when you get all this research and try to think of mechanics that can make the player feel like they are in the same situation. That you can make the player feel not only the moral dilemma, but maybe they can feel the anxiety. Maybe you can give something that makes them feel the stress. How can you convey stress in a game? That's when you start to think about it. And finally, game design interactions is when you start to test your theories of the mechanic ideation and try to change them or to make them better. But mostly you have to remember that there is also sweet in the bittersweet. So don't try to make it too much about the bad experiences or the bad emotions, because you can end up with tasteless game. There is no reason for the player to continue playing if there is not a little bit of sweet in it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a game I did using those experiences. Actually, I didn't have this plan when I started doing this game. I created this plan by the process I did in this game. So basically, this game I made when I was in a not very good mental state, but it was something that I had passed through before, so I thought I knew it and it was common and nothing to worry about. I didn't feel anything at all, basically. Things happened to my life and I just thought, okay. I just went on, and I didn't feel happiness or sadness. I just felt numb, basically. So that time, I thought, even though it was normal and I felt like that frequently, I thought, well, I'll try to make a game to show that to other people that don't understand that. So I tried to look back inside me and try to understand that. I really like this poetry by a Brazilian poet, and especially those two lines. He who passed through life in a white cloud, he only passed through life, but did not live at all. That's how I felt. And I thought about this poetry every time for like 10 years, every time I felt like that. So I started to investigate especially that, not feeling, not having hopes or dreams or strong emotions about anything. It just felt like a mess in the beginning, but then I finally got to at least some clues. I felt like I have a chaotic line of thought. I couldn't focus in one thing and go on in this line of thought. I didn't have clear objectives because everything felt the same. So why to have different objectives if they're all shit? And I didn't saw clear rewards or punishments. Everything felt the same. So how to make the player feel that instead of just telling them to feel? I created some strategies. For instance, when you have a choice in a game, you generally know what the choice is or what will result on. And you generally have clear 2 or 3 choices. But that wasn't how I felt. So I decided to put a bunch of choices all at the same time. And you don't know which one is right. And you don't know what each one of them will take you or take your character. My point of doing that was trying to create a little bit of anxiety about choice because you have all of those choices, but at the same time, a little bit of numbness because you don't know what each one of those are going to do, or where it's going to result, or how your character is going to act upon that. Also about the not clear line of thought, I decided to make all choices blurred, and you can only read them when you put the mouse over it. So it is as if you can't concentrate on all choices or all things. You can only have to really try hard to think in one each time. Otherwise, you're going to lose that thinking. To change the gameplay, to make a progression. This game counts both the anxiety and the time of the player. This is basically a game about waking up and going to work, but you don't want to go to work. So time keeps passing and you keep getting more anxious about going to work and not going to work. And I count both. With each choice you make, I'm counting both. But the player doesn't know because we don't have a watch and you don't know how anxious your character is. All the player has is a change in the background. You start with that clear bluish green that for me it feels tranquil, but it starts getting this weird yellow and then this weird red just to make you feel anxious yourself. And this is not told in any moment in the game. The player has to figure it out because you don't know how you feel. You don't know how to process that. You can just get the cues of how you are feeling. By the way, also your level of anxiety changes the choices you have. For instance, if you are too anxious, some choices don't even appear for you because you don't have a clear mind to process that. Oh, there is a sound there. So the name of the game is Rainy Day because I love rain, but also rain makes me feel a little melancholic. And to help the player feel like that they were there, I'm always using background sounds. I'm always using the rain sound when you're in the apartment. When you get out of the apartment, you have the rain sound with traffic. When you go to other places, there is also the background sound, the white noise of those places as well. Just to make the player feel like they're there. And this is their choice also. And finally, with all the choices, none of them are going to make you go to work or stay at home or only by themselves. It's always a sum of all the choices the player make in one playthrough to show that it's not just one thing you do that's going to make you feel anxious, or it's not just one thing you do that's going to make you feel better. It's a lot of steps for all of them. The game also has 4 different endings to show that, and none of those endings are good, because nothing in life is good. But nothing is only good or only bad. Everything has a drawback. That's the idea. And finally, I tested with a lot of people. I tested with my friends. My partner said that, oh, it's weird, that's not a game. But he didn't say it was bad, so good. And I released it anyway, and right now it has been played more than 200,000 times. By the way, it's free and it's a browser game, so anyone can play. I just don't recommend playing on mobiles. On PC is much better. And finally, this is the sum of everything we talked about BitterSweet design and the process, and that's it. Thank you guys very much.
Muchas gracias, Thais. Antes de terminar, voy a presentar contarles. Ah, bueno.